All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling this afternoon? Thursday in Toronto.
How are you feeling?
I think that you are the most important person to ask.
You think so? How am I feeling? I'm feeling okay.
Good.
I was down there last night.
That's why we wanted
It's
to
been
know
pointed out. It's been pointed out
Yes.
that you were down there.
I was down there. I was in attendance. It was quite the evening. There's a lot to get into, obviously, from what happened during the game, what happened after the game. Missed opportunities. Listen, the Leafs are chasing the series now. Like, at the end of the day, once you look back on Game 3 and put a bow on that and start moving ahead to Game 4, they've got a couple of days here to chew on what happened last night because that was a massively missed opportunity. They finally score first. And it's a tie game going into the third period at home. And they don't play again until Saturday. And then after that, they don't play again until Tuesday. They play one time in the next 5 days.
Yeah.
So it's a big one on Saturday night.
You described it best, Hayes, as like just a missed opportunity. I thought when you watch the Boston Bruins play like in their offensive zone, it seems like there's like 5 to 7. I don't know. Everyone views games differently, but it seems like there's 5 to 7 like Morgan Geekies out there. Do you know what I mean? Who's a good player. He's kind of a big guy. He's physical. He can make a play. But you're watching it, and it's like, other than Marchand and maybe Pasternak the odd time, who I don't think either of them are like completely dialed in. Marchand had his game last night. Don't get me wrong.
Unreal last night.
Yeah.
Unreal. But Pasternak is not doing Pasternak-type things. He's getting some opportunities to do that, but you're like, man, if they could just get it together, there's the opportunity to take over this game and the series, and ultimately you end up with a missed opportunity, a big one. And that has been the story of seasons past. And I said before the series, they have to remove the couldn't out of the equation. Couldn't get a save. Couldn't get a power play goal. Couldn't get defensive zone coverage straight. And last night, all those things crept back in. Couldn't get a save on that Frederick goal. That's just, that can't.
Horrendous goal.
Horrendous goal. So there's the couldn't get a save. Couldn't get a power play goal with a bunch of opportunities. They claim they had a bunch of looks, but I thought the power play was nonsense. It might be time to possibly start hurting some feelings and say, you're not going out there on that power play because we're not doing anything on it. How could you continually roll the same guys out there, do something different? How that would look, that's not my job to figure out. I have some ideas, but it's just the couldn't is there again. Couldn't, big picture, couldn't seize the opportunity of what last night was. And that in itself is the story of the last 6 or 7 years. Couldn't.
Well, they had opportunities like, you mentioned it. Like special teams, like we say this all the time. Goaltending, special teams, special players. Okay, that's the formula for the playoffs.
What a trio, Jamie. What a trio you just mentioned.
So you can put that template on any game that was played last night and pretty much, in the playoffs ever. Okay, goaltending. Who was better? Swayman played better. He was better. Like he was great. He was great when he had to be. He was great on the penalty kill. All of that type of stuff. Special teams. Bruins get a power play goal. Leafs don't. Okay, and special players. Marchand has his night. Matthews doesn't. That's really and that's kind of. That's dumbing it down, but that's what I saw if you want to dumb it down to 3 different things.
I think that's absolutely accurate. I think that's the perfect way to look at that. And, there were those 3 elements that all broke towards Boston, yet it was right there. The margins were so thin last night. The opportunities kept coming, and the Leafs just could not find a way to seize them. And, again, I think the Bruins have played pretty consistently through 3 games. Maybe they have more. I'm not sure if they feel they need more. Like, they have really good goaltending. They don't give up much. They're very patient. They wait for you to make a mistake, and then they bury you. And as a result, it's 2-1. Again, it's only 2-1. It's not as if they're down 3-0 in the series. You're back at home on Saturday night. See what happens with Nylander. I guess Matthews wasn't feeling great last night. He did look more lethargic. He looked tired, like placing eyes on the guy. You could see it. He was fighting it last night. but it was a missed opportunity. And, everyone's got a different reason for it. But at the end of the day, my focus is on the team. And it's natural in a fan base like this, in a market like this, and with history like this, there's all these different reasons for it and excuses and explanations, and even to the point, and I understand Marchand, no Leaf fan wants to pump his tires. I get it. That's sports. Of course you don't want to. You hate that guy. If you're a Leaf fan, you hate the guy. But you got to respect it. You have to. If you walked out of that game saying anything other than 63, that guy was crushing last night. Like, he was involved in everything. And what sucks is that he's the lone standing guy. Bergeron's gone. Krejci's gone. Chara's gone. Tuukka Rask is gone. Tim Thomas is gone. They're all gone. It's one guy left, and he's still killing you 10 years later, 12 years later. And yet you have more opportunity to push back on him. He wasn't great in the first 2 games, but he showed up last night. He closed the door, and you got to show respect for that. My guess is he'll keep playing well, and he'll understand the moment on Saturday night. So you better have some sort of an answer for him. But the fact of the matter is the Leafs went 0 for 5 on the power play. It's a disaster. I'm with you. They have to change something. You have to. You have to change something. They're 1 for 11, I believe, through 3 games.
Yeah.
And the same things continue to plague them. Their special teams not that good. The Bruins were 2 for 3, which is a little bit deceptive because the last one was the empty net goal, which doesn't really count. But still, prior to that, they're batting .500. They're 1 for 2 on their power plays. The Leafs are 0 for 5. And the Leafs scored 2 goals last night. They scored 3 goals in Game 2 and 1 goal in Game 1.
Might be a race to 3 every night.
It very well could be.
Yeah.
And it's on the Leafs to get there first, ideally, when you have such a potent offense. And I understand it's depleted because of Nylander, which is significant. Even Bobby McMahon had 15 goals this season. Like, he's a guy that would probably contribute too if he was in the lineup. You were the most potent offense in the East all year. You scored a ton of goals, and you're having a real issue scoring goals and winning games on home ice. That is their 5th loss in a row at Scotiabank Arena in the playoffs. 5th in a row, dating back to Game 5 against Tampa last year. And they're 1-6 in their last 7, dating back to Game 7 against Tampa in 2022. So they can't win on home ice. They can't figure out their special teams. That's an issue. That's the issue. It's not the refs. It's not the crowd. It's not the media. It's not Nylander. Like, there's a lot of different factors here, but at the end of the day, you can break it down to the Leafs had a chance to win. They couldn't find a way to win. They couldn't score, couldn't kill a penalty, couldn't score on the power play, couldn't get a big stop, can't win on home ice. Focus on the team, because the team's the one that's got to dig this out. It doesn't matter if there's no people in the building on Saturday night. They got to find a way to win.
And you mentioned the crowd. We got to move off of the crowd, guys. Like,
I'm so sick and tired of it. And I
understand Bonesy was there. Like, Bonesy was upset about it, and Carlo chimed in, and the whole fan base is like, the crowd that was in Buffalo at the end of the season is not showing up at that rink. That's just not going to happen. So just we have to move on from it, and that's just what the crowd's going to do.
But it's not. It's such, for me, an excuse that lets the team off the hook.
It's lazy. I'm sorry.
It's the crowd. It's the refs. It's the media's too hard. They haven't won a cup in 57 years. They've won one round in 20 years. And we all love Joe Bowen. Bonesy's entitled to his opinion.
We love him.
And I understand that. And I was sitting beside Carlo. I have a very different view. I was there. I thought that crowd was alive. But they're also, it's a crowd and a fan base that has PTSD when it comes to this team. Like, that's because the team has done it, not the crowd. The team has won 1 playoff round in 20 years. When Reeves was throwing hits, that place was going bananas. When Benoit stepped up on Pasternak, that felt like 2002 again. That was Darcy Tucker coming across the middle. That place, the roof popped off. When Nye scored, the place went nuts. When Bertuzzi scored, the place went nuts. And guess what happened? Frederick scored immediately, and then Marchand scored 18 seconds later to close the door, and fans are like, all right, here we go again. It's on the team to keep the buzz going in the building.
I agree. That's where I was going to go, Brian. Like, you're in the building, you and Carlos sitting there, and Bertuzzi scores to tie it. Like, how do you, like...
It was crazy.
Exactly. But 28 seconds later, you lose battles in your own zone, and Marchand puts it under the bar, and that's it. Like, pin drop, of course. Because people are like, okay, that's a dagger. Like, and you had an opportunity to get back in it, but you That's on the team. That's
Yes.
not the fans.
Not on the fans.
You're watching, and you could feel. I'm sitting on my couch, and I could feel the energy. Like, okay, the puck goes in. It's 2-2. It's a favorable bounce. It hits Bertuzzi's skate. Lindholm's skate goes in the net. Crowd's going crazy. Now we got a little momentum.
Yeah.
Like right away. They dump it in. They go to work. Exactly.
My dad's been going down there for 50 years, from the Gardens to Scotiabank. I called him after I was doing my hits, unprovoked. He didn't know about Bonesy's tweet or anything else. He's up in the greens. And I said, what do you think of the crowd? He's like, oh, there was alive. It was a great crowd tonight. Like,
right.
A lot of it's lazy. A lot of it's people that have not been there. And I know Bonesy is there. I get it. I understand that. And a lot of it is a preconceived notion. You go in thinking it's going to be an awful crowd, and then you see something you don't like, and you're like, it's an awful crowd. And there are two sections there. The lower bowl is different from the upper bowl.
Well, that's
right?
what happens when they see the lower bowl, when you're viewing it, and the lower bowl's not in their seats for the second period. You're like, what? You go, what the hell is up with these people? Do they not want to watch the game?
And I totally understand that, but send an email to Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment and say, stop charging $1,500 or whatever it is, and it'll be different. But that's not going to happen. Again, the prices for these tickets are crazy. They're corporate seats. I'm not excusing that. Obviously, you start the second, you start the third. That's not a great look. But there were Go Leaf Go chants. There were people going nuts. That's not why they lost, because the crowd wasn't. They've lost 5 home games in a row in the playoffs. There are people that have probably spent $20,000 over those 5 games to be in the building, and they've left saying, I haven't even seen a win. Like $20,000 probably for tickets.
Well, do you think Carlo's
wins.
idea is going to get any traction? He tweeted
What was
today.
his idea? I got to hear this.
He wants MLSC to leave luchador masks in every seat.
Yeah, that'll go. I'm sure that will work.
And you know what will happen? They'll have a great game, and then a bunch of people are going to go loot the place and rob places with masks on outside, and have there'll be some lunatic on the GO train with a luchador mask and getting in fist
Got
fights
it at
and
the
all of
Leaf
that.
game.
I kind of like that idea. Give it a shot. And listen, would it be great if it was like a European soccer match and going nuts all the time? Of course. And if you're expecting that, then you're going to be disappointed. That's not going to happen. That's not the culture of the city. You don't see that at Raptor games. You don't see it at Blue Jay games. It's not the way it goes. And would you love to see it rowdy and going nuts all night? Of course. I'm not disputing that. I just feel like the focus today, the idea that it's on the fans or on the refs or on the Leafs had 5 power plays last night. Boston had 3. I thought the McAvoy haul down of Matthews was a joke to not call that. And that's a typical NHL playoff scenario where the Leafs are up 1-0 and they had 3 power plays in a row. So I'm not calling it. That's a legit beef if you're a Leaf fan.
Yeah.
That was
and
a
the Marchand
blatant
play on Bertuzzi. There was some diving there. Like, it wasn't. You don't go that high in the air from a guy that's 5'8" that trips you. And it could have been called a trip, but it also could have been just be like,
probably coincidental, Stephen.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, watch
whistle
the
that
elevation here on this trip. Like,
when
you're
Bertuzzi goes down.
Watch Bertuzzi. It's like you don't generally go that high in the air.
I laughed because I think the refs watching it going, both of these guys are trying to draw penalties.
That's
you
it.
Could probably
the
blow
ref
it down.
was like, these guys are being idiots, and I'm not calling anything on either of them.
The crazy thing about all of this is Frederick takes a wrist shot from inside the blue line and scores on that play. That would be a nothing. It would be a nothing burger if he just blockers that to the corner. Like, you can't blame that goal on those 2 guys jousting at the blue line by the benches. Like, that's not their fault. And people say, well, it wouldn't have counted because he would have blown it down for coincidental. Or the ref just goes, these 2 guys are trying to draw penalties, let them play, and there's a wrist shot from the blue line just went in. Like, that's the way I saw it.
Exactly. I think Korolnik said last night, I'm sure he said this morning, it looked like Nieuwendyk on Lalime. Like, that's what it was. It was a flip shot from the sideboard that goes short side. And again, if you're Samsonov, you're like, yeah, everyone talk about the other stuff because that's not good enough. You can't let that in when Swayman's playing the way he's playing, It's that goal. That was the beginning of it because it, again, in the building, Nyes, they had some mojo going. It was significant that Mitch Marner set him up. Beautiful play, beautiful pass. And then I thought right after that, Marner made a couple of really nice, savvy, taking his time and creating space type plays. And that was big because I was hoping for his sake and for the Maple Leafs' sake, all right, 16's going to get cooking here. because he's on the sheet, he's feeling it, and then breakdown, bad goal, Frederick, power play to start the third for the Bruins. They score, and it was as if the Leafs it was destined for them to be down 2-1.
Well,
and that's the position they're in now.
So obviously with the luxury of watching it on TV, not being in the building, take us through the Domi on Swayman thing, because I thought that was a TSN turning point too, in a negative way, because it looked like the Bruins got pissed after that. And Maroon was
Maroon. What I will say is,
was that understated live? What that whole transaction?
No, I didn't see it originally because it was during the break, right? So we were talking, and then originally we thought it was Reeves that had hit him because Reeves made sure to get in there to let Maroon know. That, don't. And what I will say, and it ultimately doesn't matter. Remember last year, though, when Maroon was mic'd after Point got hit and he was yelling, Marner, you're dead, you're dead. I guarantee you he didn't say that last night because Reeves was standing there saying, if you want to have a piece, whenever you're ready. So the Reeves effect was there in terms of Maroon. He was yelling and screaming. He didn't do a thing. And he's not going to do a thing because if he does, Reeves is going to grab him and he knows what's going to happen. So I found that to be significant. I think this is an example of the goalpost moving, or if you're the Leafs, who cares how the Bruins feel about it? Domi barely touched him. Swayman went down like he was shot. But Brad Marchand would do that every day of the week. And it would be, well, that's Marchand. That's why he's the best. He gets out into their skin. So I don't have a problem with it at all. Domi was skating by him. Swayman, I'd ask you, Noodles, like it looked to me like he took a swan dive. And he was trying to let everyone know Domi ran into me. I'm like, you're a big boy. I think
he sold it a little bit. The difference is Marchand would go and score a goal and an assist, is that Domi was, again,
he didn't have a great
game
night.
one instead of game two. That's the difference for me. You want to get into the nonsense, be a difference maker when push comes to shove. I don't mind any of that interaction. This is gamesmanship. You're in a long series. You're trying to get underneath the skin. We'll get into Sheldon's comments. I thought he was gamesmanship today. To me, I look at, I don't mind these plays. This is the game within the game. But you got to back it. Like that's, what Swayman did? Just went and stopped a bunch of pucks. Like nothing fazed him. He was smiling. He was fine with it. Like that, if you're going to do stuff, you better back it up. That's the only thing I would say. Like you back it up with great play, not fighting, not doing, because you have to be smart. But it's all right to try and get into guys' heads. Yeah, I thought Swayman sold that. He got bumped, and Domi skates through him. Domi knew what he was doing, and Swayman knew what he was doing too. They both knew exactly
what they were doing. There was commotion. Everyone was kind of like, "This is wild." Like Maroon was pissed, as he should be. I totally get where he's coming from.
Of
course, the Bruins are going to be pissed. They know what Domi's doing there, and Swayman, your goalie. He's your goalie. If you don't have a reaction, you've got big problems. So I understand why the Bruins were bent out of shape. I didn't personally think it's the end of the world, and I guess you're right. Marchand may do that and then whatever, but that is exactly what he would do, and everyone would commend him for. That's the great pest, Brad Marchand, and then Domi does it, and it's why you can't do that, and that's unacceptable. I don't buy that.
I don't think it was like, I'm not saying he couldn't do it. I'm just saying you got to do it within the game and press buttons, but you got to back it up. That's the only thing. Like you got to, have a better
you are
game.
who you are, though. Like Max can't. He's not Marchand in terms of abilities, right? Like he's a talented player. He's a good player, but I don't know what you can expect him to do after that moment, but I don't know. It was spontaneous. This has been a really physical series, man. There was a ton of hits last night. Like a ton of hits. Pasternak has been hit hard. And I think that's what's frustrating for the Leafs, I'm sure, is like we said off the top, Pasternak has largely been neutralized. They left them wide open once in game 2. They still won the game. And other than that, he has not been overly effective. And it's been Marchand. Jake DeBrusk turns into Wayne Gretzky when he plays the Leafs in the playoffs. I got to give him credit. He's obviously got their number. He did it again last night. But the Leafs have been physical. It's been a physical series. It's going to be a razor-thin margin.
Yeah, and who knows what's up with Willie Nylander. Dregs mentioned yesterday the migraine possibility or the likelihood of that, and it's coming out today. So I don't know if this guy plays or not. But you talk about a difference maker on the power play and kind of to get some mojo. That guy could be a factor,
it's
a big-time factor.
Wow.
Bobby McMahon, I don't know what's up with him. I don't know. By the reports, it doesn't sound as likely, but I don't know. Those two guys could be difference makers out there. There's no doubt about it. Scary to think you would perceive Bobby McMahon, a guy that started like minors, come up, play a game, to be a guy that can help out offensively to contribute.
But you're right, though. They could really use him. Like,
no kidding.
You could use him instead of Robertson for me because he's a bigger body. Like, that's the way. Like, I think there's, he's more grizzled because he's older. Like, I think Robertson is a guy that is a good player, a nice player, a good shot, all of that type of stuff. But when in battles like this, I think you need size, you need body, and that's where McMahon would probably be an upgrade in that position.
I agree with you, and I think it's pretty obvious Robertson is the guy that will come out. But I will say he's had some good chances.
Great looks. He's had some great looks.
And this is the conundrum if you're Keefe, because they can't score. So if you're taking like Robertson out, again, 6-on-5 late in the game, Yarncroke's on the ice. It's like, what? Why is Yarncroke on the ice?
He likes him. He just got a thing where he's like,
obviously
I don't know.
he does, but he's not a guy that I think of as someone that's going to break a game open for you. And I understand Willie would be in that spot if he was here, and maybe there's other options that he'll look to in the future. But I think they've got to attack the special teams. They got to find a way to score. Like that. Yeah. That's something that they need to be thinking of right now, because they're in these games. There's only so much you can do. Samsonov's going to play, and he's got to make stops. Game 1 he wasn't great. Game 2 he was great. Last night he was just okay. If he's going to have swings both ways, it's not much Sheldon Keefe can do about that. He's just got to live with whatever the goalie brings him.
I thought he made some great saves. I thought Marty made a great point on the panel last night. You can make 5 great saves to allow 1 bad goal. That's gone. The backbreak. It's all gone. And that's what he did last night. I thought he made, the break was shorthanded. He had JVR in alone.
He had that 1-point shot early where he got a pad out. That was an incredible save. But it's all gone for nothing when you let that one in. And as a forward, you're not a goalie hater. But when you see that one go in, and Swayman's playing the way he is, it's just human nature to say we're probably in trouble if that goes in. Because it's so hard to get one past Swayman, and this guy comes down, a fourth-line centerman. Good player. I really like this guy. But for that to go in, it's like, come on, man.
That's Nieuwendyk Lalim in 04.
Dude,
it's
no kidding.
Exact same thing. It's just a back-breaking goal. And on top of it, you had, Marchand in the middle of it, and the whole building was watching Marchand and Bertuzzi. Like that, everyone was watching them. And then the puck's in the net. It was like a muted response. It was almost like people couldn't believe it was in.
It was a weird play.
Yeah.
Like it was to watch. I can't imagine being there because you experience it differently because you're watching what you think is going to be a fight or a potential fight in the neutral zone. All of a sudden it's like, hey, a nothing burger play, 1-on-1, getting wedged off type of thing. And it's in the end a tie game.
And that was furthermore tied the game. They finally had a lead, and Nyes gets them on the board. And I thought Nyes was good last night. And again, it's from Marner, which felt really, really significant. And there's another guy that I think he's still fighting it. If I'm being honest, he made a beautiful play on the goal, beautiful, but he looks really nervous with the puck.
Was thin after that.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird, soft turnovers, and. The Bruss penalty kill goal, he's up on the high board, and the 2 defensemen are in the battle, and he's standing watching, and then next thing you know, it's wide open in front. DeBrusk scores.
For his level of expectation to what he can bring to the table, for what he has shown everyone that he does on a nightly basis, let's just call it what it is. It's not close.
No.
We can sit here and say, oh, there was moments, or oh, that was a great pass. It's not close to what he can do.
No.
So he's got to have that battle with himself on how to get to that point. It's the same story all the time where we're looking at them saying, man, you guys are really good. We pump your tires all year, and it's just got to be it's got to be a better performance than that. If you want to be drooling over that assist and say he's back, not the case. It's got to be way better than that.
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of the goaltender. The goaltender can make a bunch of great stops, one bad goal, and that's what you remember. You can't just have one great play and think that's it. It's got to be a complete game, especially when he is a big part of the power play and penalty kill. He's basically the only guy that does both. Like PP1, PK1, that's Mitch Marner. And that's where he can really make his bones. And, it just didn't happen last night. And you're right. I mean, we're out of material when it comes to Mitch. Like, there's just not much more to say. It's just simply in front of him, and he's got to respond with or without Willie. And I don't know. I guess Willie could return on Saturday. I'm not convinced of that. I guess we'll find out.
It's scary because do you guys know people that have had migraine? Like, have you guys played with guys who had migraines that, like, I don't know a lot about it. And,
no,
I don't know if it comes from concussion, like from getting hit, or if it's just a, outside hockey type of thing. But
I honestly can't remember ever, like, a guy saying he had, like, I just don't know anything about it. I've never had a migraine, thank the Lord, but I don't know anything about it.
The only thing I can think of as far as a hit, do you guys remember a couple weeks ago when they played Tampa at home in Toronto, and that Esselmont hit Nylander through the middle of the ice? It was a hard hit. Now, again, I'm not pointing to one particular thing, but we rarely see Willie get hit.
So that would pop up 2 weeks later?
I don't. Again, I'm not tying them to each other.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've seen him be hit that hard in a long time.
We're never going to know when the exact moment happens, so there's no. We could just break down video and say there.
No, but I don't know if it comes from a hit. It might come from just people get migraines. My teacher in high school had migraines. Like, he wouldn't be in. Like, he's like, oh, he's not available today. He's got migraines. Like, it happens, right? But
exactly. And at this point, he's been out 3 games. We'll see if he plays on Saturday. I don't know. I mean, I would assume it'll be the same dance. The Leafs aren't going to announce anything, and if he's not out there for the pregame, he's not playing. Yeah. If he is, he is playing. So that conversation will continue. But with or without him, you're down 2-1, and you got to figure this out. Sad news today: the great Bob Cole passing away at the age of 90. What a life! What a legacy! What a voice! I mean, the voice of hockey. As young as I can remember, it was Bob Cole, Harry Neal. That was it. Like, that represented hockey night and hockey, and Joe Bowen in terms of the radio in Toronto. That was it. It was Bob Cole and Joe Bowen when I was a kid, and then Gord Miller and Chris Cuthbert and Jim Hewson. And there's been so many great voices over time, but Bob Cole was truly a legend. And
one of the great things about playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, just simple conversations you could have with the guy that you heard all the time growing up. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like the last guy to get my gear off. For whatever reason, I had just ended up sitting around a bunch. And Bob would come in and sit beside you in the locker room and be like, how do you pronounce this guy's name on the other team? And I always felt bad because I'm like, Bob, I've never heard of that guy, and I've never heard that name pronounced. And then he would just... He wasn't rude about it. He would just walk away and ask somebody else because he needed to get the guy's name down before the game.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was great to hear. Like, it's great because there's been a bunch of videos posted today.
Yes.
And the Sundin tying goal against Carolina. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that sounds so amazing, where he says, this place is going crazy.
Yeah.
And I kept watching the video, and I'm like, that goal was basically my fault, and it still sounded amazing.
You're watching it.
Yeah, I'm watching it. I'm like, that's basically my fault that puck went in the net, and it still sounded awesome for Bob Cole. But just to see him in the morning was awesome all the time.
Let's come back and play that. We'll play Bob Cole clips because there's so many great ones. And Gord Miller's going to join us. Gord's take on, how much he idolized Bob Cole, how much of an impression he had on his career, what it's like to call play-by-play in the same booth that Bob called for so many years. And we'll start looking ahead to Game 4 Saturday night. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Sundin jumps out in front. Leafs are all over net there now. There's a chance at the line. Big shot by Cabernet. Shoots right in. Scramble. Score. The Leafs have tied the game. And the place goes crazy.
There it is, Bob Cole back in 02.
That was Gary amazing. Roberts just cross-checking me falling down. Could have got it out. But what a great call.
What a great call.
I was just watching that. I'm like, how is that your fault? Oh, you got buried.
Well, I was the right winger. I'm supposed to be out at the point. I was in front of Urbe. Like, it's just, for me to break down a play, someone should just call me a fraud to begin with watching that.
It was one of so many great calls.
It was a mad scramble. It's an unbelievable call.
And even Matt's is just standing there. And it comes to him. He's like, all right, thank you. We'll tie the game up. Thank you very much. You guys, I think, went on to win that in OT, obviously, and move on to a Cup final. But Bob Cole, truly one of the greats. And there's only so many people you can call on and ask for their view of, the great Bob Cole, but also what it's like to be in the same seat, share the same mic and have the same view. And we're lucky enough to know a guy that's done that for about 30 years here at TSN. One of our good buddies here is Gord Miller. Gord, what did Bob Cole mean to you?
Well, I think, first of all, like so many Canadians, his voice was the soundtrack of our lives in a lot of ways, of great moments. And you think about all the, the great Montreal teams of the 70s and the Oilers teams, of the Islanders teams, the Oilers teams, the, Mario Lemieux, oh, baby, all of it. It was through the voice of Bob Cole. And I think that on a personal level, I was very lucky. I started in 1983 in Edmonton at CBC. And I had two mentors. One was the late Don Whitman, who was a tremendous broadcaster. I think maybe the most versatile broadcaster the country's ever had. Hockey, football, track and field, the Olympics, he was tremendous. And he was a great mentor, and so was Bob. And so I went to TSN in 1990, and Don Whitman advised me to go, and that was a life-changing decision. And Bob was supportive, too. And in 1992, I was doing a game at the Montreal Forum. Maybe the third or fourth hockey play-by-play I'd ever done at any level. And Bob was in town to do a game like a few days later. And he just kind of sidled over and sat in the booth with me. And I was already nervous enough. Mm-hmm. I'm at the Montreal Forum. I haven't done many games. And now Bob Cole's sitting there. And after about 5 minutes, he looked over and just gave me a little thumbs up and a smile. And I've told this story 1,000 times, but if God himself had done that, it wouldn't have meant as much as Bob Cole doing it.
Gord, did he have a philosophy? I think in greatness sometimes it's simplified where they just have one kind of philosophy where it's like, I just want to make this a certain thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, did he have an approach that was really simplified?
He did, and Jamie will get a kick out of this. He did not like the analyst talking during play. That was his time. Mm-hmm. And so
that wouldn't fly now, Gord.
No, it's just, hey, look, it's different now. Like you got to remember when Bob and Danny Gallivan and those guys were doing games, they were kind of the only ones doing it at the national level, right? Like there wasn't a lot of voices doing it. And so they were iconic because they called all the big moments. But yeah, he used to give the stop sign to his analyst because the analyst was never between the benches. So the guy was sitting next to him, and Bob would just hold the palm up like, okay, that's it, you're done. And but yeah, I think he had that great voice. If you ever get a chance, listen to Bob's call of Paul Henderson's goal in 1972, the Game 8 winner. Mm-hmm. Bob called that series on radio, and it is it's spine-tingling. Like Foster was Foster and everything else, but Bob Cole's radio call, I have the record. They put out a record of the 8 games on radio, some of the highlights, and I have that record. Mm-hmm. And Bob was just electrifying even then.
We're chatting with Gord Miller. Bob Cole passing away today at the age of 90. And, when you get to the level you're at, Gord, and, the level Bob was at, the level you mentioned Danny Gallivan and Foster Hewitt, like, I'm sure you feel like, okay, you got to establish your own sound, your own cadence, your own voice, and you're going to have opportunities to call just incredible events that people are going to reference, for the rest of time. But what is the rule in terms of play-by-play, in terms of not borrowing other play-by-play guys' phrases or approaches, but like, is there any unwritten rule about, okay, I loved what Bob Cole did here, that's something I might try to do down the line, or is it something you stay away from because that's Bob Cole and that's what he does?
Yeah, he was always, Bob's advice to me and Don's too was find your own voice. Because, don't sound like someone else. It won't be authentic. The other thing that Bob didn't do was he didn't sort of script out an ending. Have this sort of soliloquy about, when a championship ended or something like that. He let it come to him naturally. And I've always tried to do that. People have said to me about the Can You Believe It call in the World Junior. Did you script that? Yeah, because I sat in my hotel room and thought, what if Kansas ties the game up with 5 seconds to go and the goalie out to tie it up and send the game to overtime? You can't plan for it. You have to let the game come to you, And I've always thought that Bob was really, really, like one of Bob's greatest strengths was he just let the game come to him. He didn't force it. You could tell. It's a funny way to describe it, but if you were at the fridge grabbing a beer and Bob's voice went up, you knew something was happening. Right? He just had this great way of, almost like a surfer riding a wave. You know, he could do that.
Gord, we're in the entertainment business. You just talked about it, like him sitting there. If you're on your couch or you're at your fridge, he would drag you into it. Like, was his philosophy, and you just laid it out a little bit more, and it's funny because MJ got to work with him. I never got to work with him, obviously, but I talked to a lot of people today, actually, who got to work with him, and he was a very unique person. Because he had his set routine, and you kind of had to buy into it, where, you and I work together, you and MJ work together, you work with other guys, you have a routine, but it's more free-flowing. Like, his was pretty rigid, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. So he used to smoke while he called games. He had this he used to look like the Penguin in Batman. Like, he had this cigarette holder back when you could smoke in the buildings. By the way, the fact that Bob made 90 on a diet of Captain Morgan and Players cigarettes is a remarkable thing in its own.
That is incredible.
But he also undid his pants, undid his belt.
Nice.
Like I can respect that. Get comfortable.
I'm doing that right now.
I knew that, but I didn't know that was coming out today.
And
That's
cigarettes,
great.
When they banned smoking in buildings, that was kind of a thing, and that was tough for him. But yeah, he was very old school. But I don't think if a young Bob Cole came on the scene now, I don't know if you'd get away with it. Right. You had to have his track record, his background to do it. And it bothered me late in his career when people started making fun of him because, you know what? We all make mistakes. I called an overtime game this year in Nashville. I called Nick Suzuki Ryan Suzuki by mistake. We all make them. You hate it. But you're also now 3 miles from the ice. Like, you're not in the gondola at the Gardens. Mm-hmm. You're not at the Forum. You're not at Chicago Stadium. You are on the 8th floor, a long way away with these ridiculous new uniforms that have colored numbers on colored jerseys and the whole bit. So that bothered me because to me, and I said at the time, there was an article written about him, I said, Bob Cole is the gold standard. He's earned the right to make a few mistakes because we all make them.
Yeah, he was just an incredible play-by-play guy. I mean, truly the voice of my childhood in the 80s.
Well, the voice is a big part of it. There's no but you know what? I would say this, and I was fortunate enough to see Frank Sinatra perform once, and even late in his life, like he kind of lost his fastball. 9 or 10 times at that concert, he was Sinatra, and there was no one like him. And I'd say that about Bob. Mm-hmm. Great voice, yes, but lots of people have great voices. His cadence, his tone, his anticipation made it all work. That's the essence of Bob Cole. That's why you can't recreate it. That's why you can't duplicate it, because it all comes together, and the sum of the part, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The whole is this remarkable legacy of these just great calls, and laying out at the right time and letting the crowd take it and all of that.
Yeah, he was one of one. There's no question about that. The great Bob Cole passing away at the age of 90 today. Appreciate the insight, the details, the stories, Gord. It's been great having you on, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah,
thank you for this.
My pleasure. I would say this. I appreciate you lumping me in with him earlier, but let's be clear. Like, we all stand in Bob's shadow, right? Like you don't say Bob Cole and.
All right.
He's singular.
Yep. I agree with that. He was
well
one
said,
of one.
Gord.
Absolutely.
Well
Thanks,
yeah.
Gord.
Okay, guys.
There's Gord Miller. Obviously, he had so many great calls, so many great big goals. We'll play some throughout the day, but I thought what he did, like he'd call a fight, and it was amazing the way he would Bob Cole and Harry Neal.
Yeah,
right? Because Harry
would get into it. Yeah,
that's when Harry was like, "I'm coming in here too, Bob. Screw the rules. Like once you get a tilt going." Let's play the Game 1 Leafs LA McSorley on Gilmore, and then Wendell comes in from 93.
Coasting home to victory here in Game 1. Anderson comes in. Gilmore was hit inside the line by McSorley, and this is going to draw Clark and McSorley into a racket. They're throwing punches. Oh, Clark is nailing McSorley. Now McSorley comes back. Gilmore was hit inside the line. He's still down. He hasn't moved. Gilmore trying to get up. McSorley was grabbed by Clark, who threw that hit on Gilmore. And Clark and McSorley are flailing away each other. Two of the heavyweights of the league. And no nonsense here. They're going at it. McSorley has the sweater off, and Clark nails him with another uppercut. Now Clark gets hit, ducks away from one. McSorley now pounding away, and the two linesmen just scared to take a chance on getting in there, I guess. Finally, they get in.
That's just fantastic, man.
Just an incredible call. Even and this is going to draw Clark and McSorley into a racket. Like, what a way to phrase it. Like a racket. These two are throwing bare-knuckle bombs off each other. Like, Clark hit McSorley. How Marty didn't drop on those first two punches. Like, those two were so tough because Clark hit him so hard, and then McSorley by the end was throwing bombs off Wendell. Like, what a tilt. And it's Dougie right in the middle of it, too. Pat Burns.
Well, wasn't Todd Gill giving it to Dave Taylor there?
Todd Gill, because he was sneaky tough.
Gill. I played with Gilly. He was tough.
He was sneaky tough, man. Like, he had some good years. Everybody was on him all the time.
Yeah.
Typical of Toronto fans on a defenseman. Mm-hmm. But his last, when that team was good, 92, 90, he was solid.
He was playing, man.
Yeah, he was producing. He was fighting. He was great.
He wasn't a big guy. Like, if you saw him in real life, you had no idea that's the big Todd Gill. Like, he was kind of small and lean, and he'd come out, I don't want to speak out of turn. You come out of the shower and you come walking out and be like, Gilly, you're the best. He's like, all this body needs is love, Noodles. He was the best. Honest to God, I loved him. I played with him in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And he was just
salt of the earth guy.
A salt of the earth, but also pound for pound. You hear this all the time, pound for pound, because he wasn't a big guy. But, man, he could fight.
That's an example.
So
Taylor
tough.
was the captain, I guess, before Gretzky showed up, right? And he was pretty tough, but obviously Clark McSorley was going to be at the forefront. I don't think anyone knows how the Gill-Taylor fight even started. Everyone was focused on the main event. Even Bob Cole was calling it. I don't even think he referenced that fight.
Well, if you look at the bottom of the screen, Gilly's just giving him
uppercuts. Bombs at him.
Just wailing on him.
And then Gilmore, because, everyone remembers the famous Darcy Tucker jumping into the Sens bench, but Dougie goes by the Kings bench and is kind of giving it to them. I don't know if he got in the bench, but he was close to it. What a call that was. So, more on, more calls of Bob Cole throughout the afternoon. Ray Ferraro coming up. Ray will join us in about 20 minutes. Ray was between the benches last night calling a game. And I think I actually dodged a bullet. Ray and I were going to get together after the game. And I think he's flying to Washington, I'm guessing. He's calling
Let me guess who canceled that.
No. It wasn't. It was. He was like, I got to get up early. And I was like, all right, I don't think this is going to work. I was there. I didn't leave the rink until almost midnight.
Oh.
Can you imagine if I told Ray, wait for me, I'll be there in 20?
No, he would have.
Oh, dude.
He would have gone crazy.
He's like me. He's got 10 minutes.
And that was it. It was both of us were kind of in agreement. I'm like, I can't get out of here for a while. I got to do Sports Center hits. I'm on with Jay, and he's like, dude, I'm up at 4:30. I'm out of here. Yeah. Like, all right, I'll catch you game 6. All the best. So Ray's coming up in about 2025, and we got Bruce Boudreau today. Luke Wilson, night 1, round 1, NFL draft tonight. Right? We got to go look back on a couple of our favorite clips from the past 10 to 15 years in the NFL draft. So we'll do that a little bit later, and Luke Wilson coming up. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Ray Ferraro will join us in about 15 minutes. Underpant Cam, Stuart Skinner, where are we at? What's the skin dog thinking going down to L.A.? I missed that one. I missed that call. I thought Edmonton was going to get it, and they stormed back.
You got to be our Edmonton insider because Hayes was at the rink. I
told you he played well in game 1, but I was going to say he allowed 4 goals, but 3 of them went off D-men in game 1. Last night he didn't play well. He didn't play well. They were down 3. He allowed 3 on 7 shots. 2 were that Kempe had really he had 2 awesome goals.
Player, that kid.
But the third goal, Doughty, like that goes through the body. The fourth goal was a slight screen, but goes through the body. And the fifth goal, Kopitar, it's a good shot, but you need saves, right? Like you need saves at critical times. The Oilers, I thought they were two things. They didn't get saves, and I thought they were reading their press clippings to start the game.
Yeah.
Because they thought they were going to put the gear on and LA was just going to mail it in. Now there's Kopitar's shot. Like that's a nice shot.
It's a bullet,
but you need a save. You need saves. If you need a big save at the right time. Again, I liked Skinner's game one, but the problem is the narrative is like, well, you allowed 4 goals. Well, if you go
ballsy
to context,
win by LA, boys. Ballsy win because it looked like they were going to get dummied,
right,
and
but
it's a big time win.
I'll say this: Edmonton was the better team. Period 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Talbot made an unreal save on Draisaitl at 3-3 on that would have been a dagger because the Oilers had stormed back. Hyman had scored on the power play. The Holloway kid scored, and then McDavid had this ridiculous pass to Draisaitl down in his office back door, and Talbot made an unreal glove save. That was at 3-3, and then to me that was your TSN turning point.
Yeah.
So
full credit to LA.
They deserve credit.
Full
they
credit.
Deserve. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a series there. It's the same thing with Winnipeg. It comes back to the goaltending. Samsonov in Toronto, Hellebuck. Listen, Jake Ottinger, you better figure it out. You're going back to Vegas. You're down 0-2, man. It's not just him, clearly, and it's not like he got shelled last night. But Vegas did it again last night. And in the end, sometimes it can be as simple as you just need your goalie to stand on your head. Just asking a lot, but it can be the nature of things. Hour 2 coming up. Ray Ferraro will join us. His take on Game 3 last night. Looking ahead to Game 4, Leafs Bruins. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.